All right. Hello, and welcome to the Well Invested Life podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Kortni Cozzens. She's a real estate investor in Ohio that specializes in short-term rentals. Super excited to hear her story and what she's got going on today. Welcome, Kortni. Thanks for coming on.
Hi, Vince. I'm excited.
So we met a few months ago at the Real Estate Investors Association of Greater Cincinnati. And we've talked about some of the things you're currently working on, but I don't know too much about your past. So tell me, how did you grow up and what was your childhood like?
Yeah. So I grew up local here. I was in Warren County, and I was part of a lower middle class family. My dad had a mechanic shop, and it was his own business, and my mom worked in it. My grandma did. And my parents loved us, and they really poured in to try to give us a fun childhood. My dad fixed up like RVs and four-wheelers and dirt bikes, and we had a boat and things like that. And they really gave us a lot, even though they didn't have a lot to work with. They went into a little bit of debt to do that. But really, they gave us the best childhood they could, and we had a lot of fun.
Well, that sounds like a great childhood.
Yeah.
What did you do after high school?
Yeah, so after high school, I got a scholarship to go to Wilmington College here, just in between Columbus and Cincinnati. And I got started, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't really have a clear path. Like my sister had a very clear path of what she wanted to do when she graduated, and I really didn't. So struggled for a minute to try to figure out my majors. And I ended up with psychology and Spanish. I always knew like I wanted to work with kids. So I got that degree. And then I was kind of deciding, should I continue to go on to get, a doctorate to use it for clinical psychology. And my now husband kind of was like, let's take a break. We don't want to go into more debt. You already got a really great scholarship here. And he was kind of like in the mindset of, the more education you get, the more money you get in your job, but the more money you get in your job, the more time it requires and the less time you'll have with your family. And so we kind of wanted to like step back and think about that for a minute. And so after college, I went into, I always wanted to work with children. So I started working with kids in a couple different roles and eventually got hired by a businessman who wanted to start a childcare center. And I thought that was perfect because, I couldn't be a stay-at-home mom. We couldn't afford it. But when I eventually would have children, I'd be able to have my kids there. And so really after high school, I didn't really know what I was going to do. And I always knew I wanted to be with kids, and it kind of fell into that childcare role. And at that job, it was really cool because I got the opportunity to open the business. And so I was working with like architects in the building department and zoning and fire departments. And then also like they all knew their part, but they didn't know anything about childcare licensing. And so I had to make sure that we were compliant all the way around. And that's when I really got a taste of, kind of construction and real estate. And so I didn't start out in real estate, but I definitely ended up there through all that.
Okay, so you're working at this child care facility, working with all these architects and designers, and that inspired you or kind of triggered something in you that led you to want to get into real estate?
Yeah. So I had a little bit of experience. Like we did live in flips, and so we didn't know that that's what it was called at the time, but and I sold our house off market because our agent had wanted to sell it. Essentially, long story short, they wanted us to list it for $50,000 less than I actually sold it for off market in a day after our open house. So I had a taste there, but then going through the building and the zoning and with the architect and the just managing the contractors a little bit. I didn't hire them, but I kind of like looked over their work and everything. I really loved it. And of course, my plan was always to have my babies there. And that's kind of why I was in that role. I was there for 5 years. It took 4 years to have my son. And by the time he finally got there, he had colic. So he was not fit for group care is what I would tell people. And so he wasn't able to be there. And, we went through the pandemic and It was really challenging for everyone. It was challenging to stay open and all the regulations and hiring and everything. And so after 5 years and after like getting through the pandemic, it was like the end of 2021 and I was pretty burnt out. And I actually was looking for work from home jobs, but I was hoping to do something in real estate. And that's when I got my job working for a real estate investor. And he, thankfully, even though I was coming from childcare, he saw that experience that I had and gave me a shot. And so that's kind of how I got into this space full time.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. When did you buy your first property?
So about 9 months after I started with Dan, my former boss. So I caught the bug and I had been looking for, the end of the summer. So it was about 9 months later that I closed on our first one.
So you're working for him, helping him do his investing, and you're like, I want to get into this for myself. And you started looking for properties that you could buy.
Yeah. It's really hard to like see it and not want to get started yourself. I think like I definitely caught the bug.
So how many properties do you have now?
Now I have 2. So we are currently under contract with a third. I'm hoping
Congratulations.
Thank you. We're still in like the inspection period. I have some decisions to make today, but yeah, we're excited. So first one, 9 months after I started, the next one 9 months later. And then here we are about 10 months after that last one.
Staying on schedule.
Oh, well,
Maybe
we're going to chill out a minute after this, but yeah.
Okay. What are your goals for real estate? Like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what would you like to see in your portfolio?
Yeah. So really my most immediate goal is getting another property. And I'm really hoping that this is the one. We've got a really cool idea. One thing we do is we focus with our short-term rentals on the experience. And so we want to be able to sleep enough people and have big enough groups to enjoy the amenities that we have. So like one of them is a speakeasy. The next one, we have a cool backyard, like Oasis kind of thing. And then this next one, we have like a really cool idea. And this house that we're under contract with is perfect for that idea, that we wouldn't have to add as much if we did it at another property. I don't know if that's going to make sense until after you see it. But so my next goal is finding another property that's like my last one. The first one does really well. The second one absolutely crushed it. And I'm hoping to like copy and paste that into another place with a different amenity, but similar. So that's my immediate goals. But like looking long-term, I have people talk to me all the time, like, oh, come to my mastermind. We'll help you scale. And I'm like, it's not my goal to have 200 properties one day. Like I don't need a certain number of doors. I just want to have something that's bringing in enough money that it can sustain us and everything that we want to do. But I don't want it to be so big that we can't be involved, because we are not passive investors. We are active people. We do a lot of the work ourselves, and we like it that way. We feel like we offer great experience because we're able to be so hands-on. And so that's kind of my goal is copy and paste the last property and then build a portfolio that sustains us, that's not going to be too much for us to handle ourselves. Maybe with a little help.
Yeah, a little help's good for sure. So if you have these properties that are giving you the freedom to live the life that your family, wants to live, managing some properties a little bit, but for the most part you have financial freedom, what does that look like for you? Like,
what are our goals in the future? Like once we hit our mark.
Yeah, like what's your ideal life if you have everything works out the way you want it to? Yeah,
so I really like, one of the other reasons, of course, I caught the bug from that investor, but another reason that I really am focusing so hard on this right now is because I don't know if we're going to be able to have any more children. And so I'm like, if we don't have any more kids, then I want to like build a life with the 3 of us that we couldn't have with a car full of kids that we had to tote around, right? And so it's easier to travel. It's easier to like, ideally, I would like to be really involved in my son's education, however that looks, maybe homeschool, maybe some kind of co-op program. But we want to be able to hands-on raise our son, and we want to be able to like show him experiences around the world, and not have somebody that we have to report to, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think real estate gives you that freedom. It can definitely give you that freedom to be able to homeschool if that's what you want to do and travel. That's great. So you kind of touched on it already, but I think describe some of the most important relationships in your life and how real estate will affect those relationships.
Yeah. So I've been with my husband for 12 years. I was 17 when we met, and that's been like the most constant and intense relationship that I've had. We've had a lot of ups and downs, but like we are such a great team together. We really complement each other, and so that's one of my most important relationships. And then of course my son. And so how it affects us with real estate, or how real estate affects us, is that my husband is he was raised to be a saver, and he was raised to not take risk, and he is a more cautious person. And I was raised by dreamers, and they weren't necessarily ever sometimes they were able to chase that dream, but a lot of it was just dreaming. And so now I call myself a dreamer with follow through. And he's still this very talented man. Like I said, he built all these amenities that are really cool at our properties, and he has so much talent, and he doesn't even realize it sometimes. But he's so cautious, and so it's like we're playing a game of tug of war with real estate. And so I am pulling stronger than he is. But he's still holding me back just a little bit. So we're slowly moving forward. I guess not really slowly. It depends on who you ask. But we are moving forward. But it is an interesting dynamic that we didn't have before, of me pulling us along. And then, of course, my son is an important relationship to us, obviously, as I would hope most parents would say. But when we got our first property, he was 18 months old. And then the second one, he was just over 2. We kind of live in our properties for a few weeks while we're getting them set up, because we do live in Wilmington and we invest in Cincinnati. And so we were living in our second property, and with our 15-year-old golden retriever, our 9-year-old lab, and our 2-year-old, and trying to get this set up and do fix a few things. And of course, my son decided he wanted to potty train while we were there. And so it's been, he's just growing up like a normal kid would, but we do it around the real estate sometimes.
It sounds like your husband and you have a great counterbalance to each other, and you kind of balance each other out really well.
We do, for sure.
So I believe that to have a great life, obviously being financially free is very helpful, but I think that there are a lot of other investments we can make in our lives that can really provide a lot of value.
Yeah.
So what are you investing in other than real estate, other than finances, that you think will have a positive impact on your future life?
I think that right now, I mean, my son is 3 now. And so I look at it as that is my biggest job right now, is investing in him and instilling in him values and character now, because what we pour in right now is going to determine who he is when he's in 2nd grade, and what we pour in him then is going to influence who he is as a teenager, and then what we pour into him as a teenager is going to be who he becomes as a man. And so I think that it's really hard if we miss this step right now and we get him to 2nd grade or a teenager. You can't backtrack. And so it's really important to have that as a focus of we can't be too tired to teach him a lesson, to teach him, how he can be a good friend and how he needs to continue to try if something doesn't work out, and instill in him, kindness and work ethic and gratefulness. And so that is definitely at the stage of our life while he's 3, it's constant pouring into that, and that's our biggest investment right now. And then the other thing is too, like I said, I've been married, I haven't been married, but I've been with my husband for 12 years, and there have been so many ups and downs with, I said, our infertility journey and these houses and, other things that everybody goes through. And I think we're more and more, as we grow up, we're learning how important it is to invest in each other, and continue to learn as we change in this journey. Like, we are different people than we were before we started investing. We have a whole different dynamic than we did before we started investing. And it's important to pour into and invest in that relationship and figuring out how we can continue to partner and grow together.
I love that. I love that so much.
Thanks.
Who are some of the people who have inspired you in your life?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this one, and I thought at first about all these people I see on social media that are doing all these crazy great things. And what I realized is, like, where I'm really getting the most inspiration and where I feel the most energized is at places like the RIA meeting and at like meeting new investors at BPCon. And it's like people who are just starting out and they're figuring it out as they go, and they're trying something new and they aren't afraid of failing. That is something that doesn't come naturally for me, because while my husband thinks that I am very risk tolerant, I'm not that risk tolerant. He is just very risk adverse. And so I look at people like my former boss, Dan, he will try new things all the time and sees how they go. And he's not afraid of failure or of having to pivot again. And then I met my dear friend Shanna, and she is also a short-term rental investor, and she started just educating herself and pouring into that education, figuring it out. This isn't her main gig, and she is doing it on her own. And she just dove in and got her first property, set it up. It's absolutely beautiful. And I'm just so inspired by that type of person, because I got the luxury of working for Dan and learning and watching what he did and watching what was working and watching what wasn't, and being able to essentially get paid for this crazy great education I got. And so that's like a safety net for me, whereas all these other people don't have that, and they're still just shooting their shot. And that really inspires me way more than these people who are showing you things on social media.
Yeah, there's a lot of people on social media that are, showing the highlights and showing how great real estate investing can be. And yeah, I follow all kinds of people who do inspire me.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good stuff out there, but meeting local people who are doing things every day that are real people, that aren't about the show and the glam and taking chances. That's really inspiring.
And you get to see like their why and their like the reason behind what they're doing, and just like really see the vulnerability that they have and the risk that they're taking, not on a highlight reel. And while I am inspired by some posts on Instagram, but really just going to these meetups has been like, it really just energizes me, and it's better than I could have imagined.
I feel the same way. I look forward to all the meetups I get to go to.
Yeah.
What are you excited about for the future? It sounds like you're about to close on a new property.
Hopefully, yeah. Yeah.
Maybe.
We're in the inspection period, so I've got to make some decisions today, but hopefully by the time this goes out, we'll be moving forward and closing soon. And yeah, I'm really excited about that. We've got really great plans and a great like design and amenity that we want to put out there. But other than that, I just finding something else. I'm really like, I've been looking for months for something that's really going to work. And so whatever our next step is, I'm really hungry to take it.
That's great. All right, let's wrap this up. What is the best way for people to connect with you?
So I'm on Instagram and I use it quite a bit, and my name's spelled kind of funny, so I put it in here. It's rei.Kortni. It's Kortni. So I'm pretty big on there. And then, yeah, mainly social media.
Okay. Well, if anyone wants to talk to Kortni about real estate investments, reach out to her on Instagram, and you can reach out to me also. Anything else you want to talk about before we call it a day?
No, this has been great. I'm also inspired by seeing you do this and seeing you get your start. And I know we're in the accountability group together, and it's great seeing your progress all the time as well, and your effort, even when like you have the discipline, even when you're not super motivated, and then you always get that motivation back, and that's really inspiring to me too.
Oh, thanks so much. I appreciate that. And yeah, we are in an accountability group, so we meet every week, Kortni and I and a couple other people, and just hold each other accountable to what we say we're going to do, and it's really helpful to stay on track.
It is, for sure.
All right, Kortni, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
Thank you for bringing me. I'm excited.